Our top story this morning, President Trump got off to a fiery start at the NATO summit, taking aim at Germany and other member nations for not doing enough to support the alliance. He has another round of meetings today with world leaders before jetting off to London. CBS's Kylie Atwood is in Brussels with details.
Ahead of the final day of the NATO summit, the president doubled down on his demands for more military spending. He tweeted, "Presidents have been trying unsuccessfully for years to get Germany and other rich NATO nations to pay more toward their protection from Russia." Yesterday, NATO's pomp and circumstance showcased its military strength and unity between the 29 countries. But the president, with some sharp criticisms, upended the gathering of allies.
Germany, as far as I'm concerned, is captive to Russia.
Only 5 members, including the U.S., are currently paying the requested 2% of their nation's GDP on defense spending. The president is now pressing allies to raise that to 4%.
There are disagreements, but NATO has made decisions and we are delivering on the defense pledge.
The summit here in Brussels is usually a chance to reaffirm a commitment to an alliance that was formed to defend against Soviet aggression.
Sometimes it feels like we punch our friends in the nose and hold our hand out to people that are working strongly against us, like Russia.
Back in the U.S., there's mixed reaction to the president's attacks.
The president is right to point out that our NATO allies need to adhere to their commitments.
The president and Russian President Vladimir Putin meet for a summit in Helsinki next week. Kylie Atwood, CBS News, Brussels.
Also making headlines this morning, the Trump administration says by this morning it expects all children under the age of 5 who are eligible will be reunited with immigrant parents in the U.S. Government attorneys told a U.S. district judge in San Diego they need more time to track down parents who've already been deported. The deadline for reuniting parents with about 2,000 older children is later this month. Turning to Crime Watch, a manhunt continues this morning on the Bozeman Pass for a man who shot at law enforcement officers during an early morning traffic stop Wednesday. Suspect Shawnzy Cole is considered armed and dangerous. He's a 36-year-old white male, just under 6 feet tall, about 170 pounds, with a red mohawk. The public is advised not to approach Cole, but to call 911 if you see him. Residents in the Quinn Creek area are being told to stay inside and lock their doors. Authorities say it all started when a Park County Sheriff deputy attempted to pull over a vehicle for suspected drunk driving. The driver fled, and when authorities caught up with Cole, he reportedly pointed a pistol out the window and fired at them. They backed off and found the car a few miles up the road being driven by a woman who was previously the passenger. She was arrested with unknown charges to come. In court news, a man charged in a shooting death on the Crow Reservation 15 years ago is now getting a new sentencing trial. Federal Judge Susan Waters says Quentin Burden Ground Jr.'s use of a gun did not meet a specific federal definition of a violent crime. In 2004, Burden Ground was convicted of second-degree murder for the death of Emerson Pickett and was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison. Judge Waters' ruling in the case focused on Burden Ground's use of a gun and the phrase crime of violence. Waters says Burden Ground's level of intent did not clearly meet the threshold, and she vacated the firearm charge. Continuing our coverage, the baby abandoned in the woods last weekend has been released from the hospital. The baby boy remains in protective custody, and an investigation into exactly what happened on July 7th is ongoing. Authorities have yet to file charges against the mother. Charges have been filed against Francis Crowley, the man who told authorities he abandoned the little boy in the woods. Local law enforcement says they're familiar with the suspects in the case. They were camping in the woods near Lolo Hot Springs for the past couple of months. On to Fire Watch. The Terrick Fire in northern Wyoming is now 60% contained. The fire was sparked northeast of Worland by lightning Sunday night and has burned an estimated 44,000 acres. More than 100 federal, state, and county fire crews are helping battle the flames. No structures have been lost. Yellowstone National Park witnessed its second busiest June ever. Last month fell short of the record set in 2016 by some 50,000 visitors. So far in 2018, more than 1.3 million people have visited Yellowstone. Overall, that's a 2.5% increase from this same time last year. National parks were also on the docket for Montana Senator Steve Daines Wednesday. Daines chaired a hearing on Capitol Hill on a bill that seeks to create a legacy and restoration fund for the National Park Service. It would be funded by energy development fees and private donations. Senator Daines spoke about the importance of protecting the basic infrastructure of the country's national parks.
Whether it is the $5.5 million needed to replace and upgrade electrical and wastewater utilities along Lake McDonald, or the $92,000 to repair a water line that crosses Rose Creek in the Rising Sun concessions area, visitors to the national parks deserve basic functioning infrastructure that remarkably actually works.
Senator Daines says he hopes this bill will help alleviate some of the $11 billion currently on the National Park Service backlog. $217 million of that backlog comes from Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks. Back here in Billings, nothing says summer like a burger, and there are only a few places in the country that serve up a better one than the Burger Dive. Yet another big honor for the restaurant, as the Burger Dive is listed among the top 10 burger joints in the country by travel site TripAdvisor. The Burger Dive was started by Brad Halston and his wife Andy more than 7 years ago, and they're no strangers to recognition for their outstanding burgers. But Brad says this one is particularly meaningful because it comes from the customers.
It means a lot, really, and if you think about TripAdvisor, it's coming from the customers, and I think that's a really cool thing. You look at some of the other national media, some of the stuff you get, and then compare it to this, where it's actually coming from the people that eat at your place, that eat at all these other places around the country, giving their opinions, and then to have that translate into this kind of recognition is just awesome. It feels great.
According to TripAdvisor, you can find the best burgers at Al's Burger Shack in North Carolina. And before we take a break, eradicating noxious weeds can be difficult work, especially if that work is on rough terrain. MTM's John Amy shows us how mules are used to help spray for weeds.
It takes plenty of mule power to get rid of noxious weeds on the East Ridge.
Without the help of the backcountry horsemen, this project would be much slower in our progress in being able to control noxious weeds.
Mile-high backcountry horsemen, along with assistance from AmeriCorps in full armor, hauled hundreds of gallons of water up Maud-S Canyon Trail in Butte so they could remove knapweed and other invasive weeds along the hiking trail.
And that's the whole key to working with the pesticides, is something that will kill the weeds but not kill the native vegetation.
Each year since 2006, the East Ridge Foundation, which was started by the Rotary Club of Butte, has been doing this weed eradication project. Removing the weeds not only protects the native vegetation, it cuts back on allergies.
So when it comes out in mid to late July and into August and people are sneezing and complaining about having a cold, it's really an allergy that they probably have with knapweed.
So the crew way up there on the ridge are each wearing these 40-pound backpacks that hold 5 gallons of liquid. And that's why it's important to have the storage of water along the trail so they can easily refill their backpacks and get to eradicating these weeds.
It's fairly high up, and they to come down and reload with water, they burn most of their energy just getting back up to the spray areas.
Working like a mule to get the job done. In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
And officials say the cost to complete this project runs between $70,000 and $10,000 annually.